Hello, Mark. Great to have you on for a call and a bit of a chat. Part about listening or watching this, Mark Vella is the owner and founder of KHEM Lives. You get or just KHEM. So a community for men to basically empower themselves and better their lives through, as I understand it, through stoic principles and increased emotional awareness. Mark is also the founder of KHEM Technologies and the new CRM Chiron, which is specifically there to help clinics refine their processes and improve fulfillment. But as I understand it, Mark, you can give a much better introduction than that. Great to have you here.
Hey, Tomas, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to connect with you, man. We always seem to go down some pretty deep rabbit holes, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we're having this conversation for 5 minutes beforehand, going deep about managing clinics and life and everything that's related. And I figured we better press record first for it, so none of this advice gets wasted. So yeah,
excellent, pleasure, and again, thank you for having me.
Brilliant, thanks. So Brian, listen to this. Would you like introduce yourself? Explain what you do, what your mission is, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, just in a really quick summary, I originally came from the advertising and marketing industry and had been playing in that sandbox for close to 20 years. We all experienced the global pandemic in 2020, and by 2022 there was really no signs of this new world moving in any direction outside of a bit of a complacency and a sense of urgency on my behalf to do something different and be a little bit more impactful, not just in my own personal world, but serving my community and really understanding the pain and the bottleneck. Firstly, in an entrepreneurial world, working from home, spending a little bit more time, with myself. And I always looked at myself as a bit of an extrovert, but have now learned and appreciate I'm more of an introverted extrovert. And in that, I really took the time to learn more about some of the pains and the bottlenecks in the health and wellness industry, which was quite connected to actually prior to COVID. I served as a fractional chief operating officer in an emerging clinic with up to 40 practitioners, and obviously coming from a world of technology and technology really governs that the advertising and media industry, was able to lend my experience to an industry that I was finding more passion to connect with. That being, health and wellness clinics, holistic health and wellness, and look at the correlations from the advertising and marketing industry and seeing almost the similar patterns, breakdown in communication, infrastructure systems, and, moving the best technology forward. Coincidentally, I launched a wellness program in 2021 focused on men, and I'm a certified life coach, performance development coach. I'm a business coach, and it was a great opportunity for me to roll up my sleeves and really get involved in our community. And the byproduct from that is taking on a pretty ambitious project in 2024. We're building out a proprietary CRM and ERP SaaS platform that meets the needs of emerging health and wellness clinics, starting in Canada and essentially scaling across North America and hopefully globally by 2025.
Rich, so you got plenty on your plate anyway, so cheers taking the call. But I want to start off by, I suppose, just for anyone listening, to get 80-20 right away, just actionable insights from your experience working in these clinics. What are the biggest, so before we start talking about the interplay between, I suppose, your big mission statements for your new company and your existing community work, what are the biggest problems that practitioners are having today in terms of growing their clinics, in terms of fulfillment, what processes, what are you seeing again and again coming up?
It's a very deep rabbit hole, actually, Tomas. If we start quite linearly, if you look at just how dynamic health and wellness clinics have become over the last couple of years, it might be fair to assume that the role of the chief marketing officer is almost obsolete and is just not apparent. For the most part, the majority of clinics, whether you're an independent practitioner or a mid-sized clinic, in most cases, you have the clinic owner as a hands-on practitioner. So if you essentially now strip it down to time management and resource management, the clinic owner is essentially overlooking the entire operations performance management and might not actually be equipped with the necessary or the relevant tools and the resources to even reach new patients and new clients, let alone keep them engaged and look at longer term goals with their patients and clients to move towards more of a lifestyle experience and moving beyond diagnosis and prescription. It's one of the big bottlenecks, and obviously, no one wants to see any practicing practitioner move away from the ability to make money and generate a revenue from treating patients. So the lack of tools and resources would be first and foremost. Then obviously we look at the operations management and the operations efficiencies of the modern day health and wellness clinic. It's fair to assume now that patients are quite savvy in terms of, the amount of information they can absorb, whether it's through the internet, through social media, through visual content on YouTube and such. Again, we're moving into a bottleneck where we have content saturation, and there's so many choices now for patients to choose one clinic over the next, or perhaps even take some of their healing as an internal process, something they can do at home, for example, before they've even made a choice of choosing a clinic. We're definitely at a place now that, you could almost fall into the trap of doomsday scrolling on social media and not move to making any decision in any direction. And then of course you've got the emerging clinic, meets the needs of multiple modalities. The average clinic now has a massage therapist, chiropractor, an acupuncturist, and a physiotherapist. And then of course, you've got other modalities such as your naturopathic doctors, your mental health practitioners, psychologists, therapists, and such that really round that holistic wellness experience. Unfortunately, so many independent practitioners never get to that. They never cross that chasm. They just don't have enough resources. They don't have enough revenue flow to meet the needs of an emerging patient and their needs, of course.
So what I'm hearing from that, Mark, basically is the main constraints right now that you are seeing are, number one, the owner of a clinic is wearing all the hats. They're basically an evolved solopreneur that has, basically now got people working with them, but fundamentally they have the mindset of a freelancer, fundamentally. And they're in this constant flywheel of not being stressed thin from a fulfillment standpoint, but maybe not having the cash flow to support bringing on more people, take stuff off their plate. And in doing so, they don't know where to market because obviously there's a lot of saturated space. And if you're not doing it right, it's very hard for any clinic to cut through the noise. As I understand it, would that be a fairly decent summary of what you're seeing coming up?
Absolutely. And with that, of course, is we're moving beyond a lack of accountability. In fact, it's almost becoming painful. And having seen it on both sides as a facilitator, as a resource in the marketing and operations, efficiency side of the industry, it makes it very easy for a clinic owner and even for patients to pivot very quickly, to where the content is amassing, which poses another challenge, of course. And if you've got enough money to throw, money at Facebook ads and SEO, essentially you are going to attract an audience. Now, whether or not it's the most correct content for an audience, the algorithms are obviously starting to speak a different language. And it definitely comes down to having a healthy budget to help promote and grow your business. But it definitely needs to be built on a strong foundation, of course.
Perfect. And then in your work as a COO, from an actual specific fulfillment challenge that clinics are having in terms of actually, their internal infrastructure, marketing aside, what are some signs that there's something internal that needs to be improved from an operations standpoint?
Yeah. And again, I think, if we really look at the emerging health and wellness clinic at least in 2024, everything comes down to time management. And, the hopes obviously of a clinic owner running a healthy clinic, a happy environment, built on culture and built on the goals of helping patients with their immediate pain needs. I think everybody has the right intention. The one thing I keep seeing over and over again is the complete moving away from key performance indicators, KPIs. And another interpretation of that is OKRs, objectives and key results. And time again, for the clinic owners that are incorporating a hands-on approach to their clinic, unfortunately don't have enough time or space away from their clinic to incorporate KPIs in the first place. Now, this can come right down to, your administration duties, your practitioner duties, and going all the way up to a human resource management aspect. Unfortunately, we're not seeing enough KPI integration at the clinic level, which unfortunately then moves us away from performance and the ability to measure performance, true performance, outside of simply generating revenue.
And what would an example of a KPI or an OPR that a clinic owner or practitioner should be tracking, but they're very often not?
I think of things in a very basic light. Now, for example, if a clinic owner's objective or their personal goal is to enjoy, the fruits of their business, spend more time with their family, potentially open up a second clinic or a third clinic, even going on a holiday, which they probably haven't done for a few years, taking and looking after their own health and well-being, is their ability for their clinic to run when they're not there. Very, very basic KPI. Now, obviously what we can help do, is to start measuring KPIs down at the administration level. Now this obviously is turning into that 5-star Google review that we're all chasing. We've all got those aspirations that every patient's going to have a 5-star experience. So how do we mitigate the bottlenecks and the challenges at the administration level to give a clinic owner the peace of mind that they don't need to micromanage? They don't need to be there for, 10 hours a day just to ensure that the clinic is running at an optimal efficiency pace, right? So what I do and the approach that we have is we look at an overarching organizational objective, and then we move through goals, activities, and then we establish KPIs based off those activities. And once we've got an overarching organizational objective, it's very easy then to work into the individual department objectives, which would then have their own goals, activities, and KPIs. And we can actually start setting individual objectives and vision statements tied to an activity and measured by KPI. It's a very quick process. Again, it's just, the ability to hit the pause button and spend more time with clinic owners and practitioners that understand that outside of generating revenue, there's a better way to move towards that operational efficiency that, at least for the most part, we all have those aspirations to move towards. It's just getting there and setting the foundation so we can measure the data, measure our performance, and be quite honest if we're, deviating from those objectives and goals.
Perfect. If I was a clinic owner, so that makes a lot of sense to me. I suppose at the end of the day, you're really dealing with the implementer, the entrepreneur, the manager, and really as you're getting yourself out of the weeds, get out of just, practicing yourself, actually putting on that business hat. And there's obviously a lot of skills to be developed on that. Question that I would have jump to mind for me, Mark, is if I'm a clinic owner, and we're doing around 1 million a year, maybe, say 800K to 1 million a year, and I want to assess what are my breaking points? What are my bottlenecks right now? What sort of action items what sort of elements of my clinic should I be looking at and assessing initially if I want to try and diagnose it myself?
And there's obviously a few ways that we can look at this. Now, for the clinic owners that might be listening and taking anything from our conversation here, I would highly encourage that for a week that they were able to spend time in their clinic, looking at things through the perspective of the patient. That would essentially mean and getting really raw with the user experience, the patient experience. Book an appointment on the website. Start to engage with maybe some of the automated communication that's been set up as part of a sales funnel process, or maybe it's still a manual process administered by administration staff, of course. Start to see the experience through the patient, walk through the clinic doors, be hyper vigilant, hypercritical actually of your front desk staff, and start looking at some of the infrastructure that they've integrated in their daily and their weekly schedules, of course. Right through to the meet and greet with the practitioner, the patient experience in the room with the practitioner, and starting to set some goals and KPIs at the patient level. What does wellness mean for an individual patient? Even just asking these very basic questions over the course of a week would give a clinic owner so much insight to some of the bottlenecks and challenges that just might not be seen for any reason. Some of the pushback that we do see from our side, the clinic owners don't always trust their administration staff to bring the best ideas forward. But again, the administration staff don't want to be too critical that, their jobs might be on the line, or they might be over criticized for not doing something in the first place, for example. I believe that, for the most part, clinic owners, the more data, the more insight they can get to the patient experience, the cream rises to the top, or, it takes what's the analogy that you've used before, Thomas? A high tide rises all boats.
Yeah.
It's essentially getting the team to contribute to those KPIs so the clinic owner can have a little bit more breathing space in the environment that they've created, which should all move us towards prosperity. And prosperity can again be measured in a KPI, depending on the individual goals and activities that are helping everybody get and essentially move in the right direction. So starting at the patient experience level, obviously moving beyond that, if there was the requirement for a practitioner that doesn't exist in the clinic, and we see this again with clinics that have multiple modalities, for the most part, a physiotherapist could really benefit from having a massage practitioner in the clinic. And it could be the same thing for a chiropractor and their relationship with the massage therapist. It's really understanding what patients are looking for, and if it's been set up in the culture of the clinic, if the clinic can meet and exceed those patient requirements. If not, that's also okay. But getting really good at your original value proposition, and then moving back towards your vision, mission statement, and your value goals. And it's easy to deviate from those. Don't get me wrong. I think everyone's pivoting and moving at 1 billion miles an hour. It is a byproduct of at least the society and the industry that we do work in. But taking time to pause, maybe it's, 1 day a week. And again, if you do have the luxury to again, look through the patient experience over the course of a week, it's not something that you should have to do then every single week. Maybe it's something you do every quarter, or at least, biannually.
That makes so much sense. At the end of the day, begin with the end, begin with the ending in mind, as I say, and then work backwards. There's a great clip that always jumps to mind for me on YouTube where Steve Jobs was speaking at he's speaking on stage, and he's talking about, I believe it was the iPhone for the first time. And someone in the audience goes, "Why don't you use XYZ programming language? It'd be so much more efficient." And basically Steve Jobs said, he sits, pauses, and, everyone thinks he's stumped, and he sits back and he says, "What I've found is to always begin with the end customer and work back to the tools. Because if you go the other way around, it never works." And obviously I often see it in terms of doing tech, developers, programmers are set on using a certain rule and they forget what people are coming for. Now, my takeaway from what you're saying about clinic owners is obviously doing, an incredible job and helping people with their overall quality of life is absolutely essential. But also, as you said, there's put on the business head, the actual experience, remembering what emotions people are going to come through when they visit those clinics is obviously essential, because, the place makes you feel calm when you walk in, and you get a great service from a medical professional. you best believe that's the odds of you making that your go-to clinic, just so much higher because trust really comes down to, it's the most important component in any relationship, be it business or business or otherwise.
Absolutely. I mean, if you really strip down the patient avatar, it's essentially a demographic snapshot of any of the patients that would be visiting the clinic or that you're trying to attract and target through various platforms, SEO, Facebook ads, social media ads, of course, organic content. YouTube is one of those big platforms that allow so many of us to engage and build an audience with visual content. And then, of course, building micro platforms. It could be a specific landing page. It could be a specific function within a CRM or an ERP system, for example, to allow you to, it actually gives you the ability to earn engagement with your clients and patients over time. The longevity of your relationship as patients start to reintegrate back into their own individual lives for whatever reason that be. Let's take example, a motor vehicle accident versus someone that's looking for a therapeutic experience in a clinic. Now, and I've been in both scenarios. Sometimes my physical pain has been so abrupt. I'm looking for instant relief. I'm obviously looking for a relationship with a practitioner that understands my pain, that can work through that. And it might be instant. Now, whether or not that's a chiropractic experience or a physiotherapy experience, the result should still be the same. There's obviously going to be, the aspect of a relationship building experience. It has to obviously be built on trust, but there has to be an aspect of performance metrics. Am I moving further away from pain? And am I instilling more trust in the practitioner that I'm working with? Now, over time, of course, I wouldn't really want to be a patient for any longer than I need to. Obviously we're fighting the same battles with being stuck in traffic and such. And it's one of the things that we see pop up time and time again, patient cancellations. How do we minimize patient cancellations? And again, I come back to the KPI model, because if we truly understand the patient's journey,
no-shows.
There'd be no need for a patient cancellation because we've already met and achieved their personal needs. It comes back to that patient journey. Now, obviously, as we're reintegrating back into lifestyle, my advice and my encouragement is that there are so many ways that clinics can brick wall that relationship, essentially not really giving me a choice to go back to the Google machine and start window shopping for the next experience. If I've reinstilled trust, it's almost like that relationship you have with your accountant. Unless something went really bad, you almost see yourself working with this person for, a really long time.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. The thing that I think clinic owners here can take away is, at the end of the day, from a purely quantitative standpoint, reducing no-shows will help your business. Having people actually show up and pay will help your business, no matter what way you spin it. And one of the easiest ways to do that, aside from all the automations that we can have, the reminders, there's any amount of ways of checking and make sure people show up, is if somebody isn't dreading going to your clinic, the odds of them showing up and not putting it off are significantly higher. It's very simple when you break it down to brass tacks.
That's
what paying attention to.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I suppose the big thing that you're doing with technology at the moment, we're talking about it, with CRM functionality and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest pain points that you guys are looking to solve with your new SaaS tool, or your new software products?
Yeah, it's I think again, just really coming back to the content saturation and the world of digital marketing and digital media in the modern era. It's safe to assume that we've got a ton of platforms that meet and achieve these goals, whether it's increasing revenue, whether it's optimizing content, whether it's engaging with new patients. We've almost reached a point of platform saturation as well. And for the majority of clinic owners that we're working with, outside of their subscription to a health and wellness CRM, ERP system, And for those that might be a little bit confused with the definition of CRM versus ERP, a CRM would essentially be what you would imagine as a central relationship management database tool. It would include obviously your patient scheduling, patient intaking, patient notes, an aspect of e-commerce, and some very clever ways that you can optimize your patient relationship. An ERP system really takes that to the next level. It's almost like putting your CRM on steroids, and really optimizing things like your data aggregation, market insight reports, stretching your abilities in the e-commerce space, and starting to incorporate some of the Web3 tools. For example, a reward-centric model, not necessarily tokenized, but really, looking at the platform capabilities and bolting onto the CRM experience. So we're more like a SaaS platform, software as a service, and we've got the ability, because we have built it from the ground up, and it is proprietary, that we can meet the needs of individual clinic owners and clinics, right down to the administrative tasks, and make sure that the software meets the needs of those clinics as they're growing. So that's really our focus. To expand on that, I went on a bit of a rant there. How would you like me to?
I suppose just for any clinic owners, just so they get easily reminded, the purpose of your software is my understanding, again, this was, simple me, if I'm misunderstanding, let me know. Your point about platform saturation, that's specifically to software tools in general, not just social media. And my takeaway is that because it's really a homogenized solution out there, everything's quite similar. I'm assuming you mean, Salesforce, HubSpot, all these popular CRMs. As I understand it, your proposition, your goal is to create a unique angle and slant specifically in the market for clinics by introducing some new novel elements like a rewards centric system. Is that a fairly summary way to get that?
Yeah. So the last couple of years, I've really identified where some of the bottlenecks are in our closest competitors' platforms, and in a very tasteful approach, the minimal viable product works. Everything from your patient scheduling, intakes, your ability to collect payments, insurance direct bulk billing. These have almost become an expectation in a CRM platform, which makes it a bit of a challenge if you essentially just want to replicate what your competitors have built. I would highly advise against it. There are some very, very good CRM software suites in the wellness clinic space, in the industry, that serves and meets the needs of independent practitioners right through, to your mid-sized clinic. I kind of define a mid-sized clinic somewhere around, from 5 to 15, 20 practitioners. Okay. The ability then to think outside the box, whether it's aggregating data, building data reports, anything outside of that minimal viable experience is essentially where we kick in. So we had to we had to be very good at not just building the minimal viable product experience and making sure that once clinic owners and practitioners make a switch, it's to meet and exceed their needs in other aspects of their operations efficiencies. Maybe it's a sales and business development support. Maybe it's a content strategy support. Maybe it's a complete SEO strategy that needs to be incorporated inside of the CRM, the ERP system itself. So what I can do now is I can use our minimal viable experience to help optimize the daily scheduling of a clinic, and then help clinic owners understand, or at least for us to understand, what their individual growth goals and objectives are, and move in that direction through the use of technology. Now, whether or not it's AI, or whether it's better infrastructure systems built into the software itself, our software empowers clinic owners to move in the right direction. And whether that's, again, optimization or essentially scaling their clinic, we can really measure things now at the individual clinic level.
Right. Fair. That's Lots of process there. Lots of process there. To bring back another thing I was going to bring up, what is the end goal for Carl and Kem? Sorry, here to share it. What's the end vision? Because it's very, very clear that you know how to operate a clinic and iron out those common issues that people have, but what's the end game? I understand that you're doing some community work. You're obviously doing the technology company. What's the goal here? What's the impact you're trying to make?
Yeah, I mean, at an individual level, I'm a bit of a workhorse. I do pride myself on that. It is essentially something I'm moving away from. Working 18 hours a day, it doesn't serve either of us. I believe that we've got those aspirations of work hard, play hard. But it doesn't always work like that. And I'm certainly incorporating more lifestyle goals in my personal life, meaning we can work smarter and obviously reap the benefits of the work that we're creating. But I believe in leading by example. And, that all means that we have to all be healthy to lead by example. So it can remind clinic owners and practitioners that they're essentially treating patients that are moving towards that same goal. So obviously leading by example and, really focused on lifestyle. I think that integration is key. I've always benefited from being quite physically active. Used to compete many moons ago, mixed martial arts, kickboxing, travel around the world. Was very fortunate then to be able to save money and almost, invest in myself and build businesses that met my personal needs. Moving to Canada in 2010, just further amplified that I was almost on a personal journey, traveling the world, being able to work, experience new people and culture and really doubling down on that sense of community. Inside of building the technology, of course, we want to help so many clinics, health and wellness clinics, not only reach that level of optimization for themselves, but in turn, they're helping us scale essentially could be a global community of health and wellness practitioners, all moving towards that optimization. So it feels really good to be able to serve not just our industry, but serve our communities. And inside of that, of course, we still do operate our wellness program. I refer to it as a social enterprise. I really do enjoy meeting people where they're at. It's got nothing to do with, being financially focused. It's really just helping people take that first step towards their personal health and wellness journey and making an impact. To be completely honest, it feels rewarding and quite powerful to be in.
What exactly do you do with the social enterprise? What does that actually consist of in terms of how you're helping people?
Yeah. Again,
and what's the target audience? Is it everyone or? I personally work with men. We do work with women in a separate space. What I really focus on is accountability, and accountability it would be challenging depending on the state or the situation that someone's in. Being trauma informed, it has also taught me that it's not a one size fits all model. Some guys just need a bit of a clip in, the back of the head. Take them down to the gym. I don't mind being a human punching bag, for a couple the first couple of sessions, but it's really incorporating that lifestyle choice of putting one foot in front of the next, making healthy choices, looking at things from a lifestyle goal aspect and moving in a direction. I do believe that all growth is spiritual. I also consider myself being quite atheist for so long until I really unpacked my own spiritual journey. And that can be confronting and conflicting for someone that either, isn't religious or has a spiritual being or believing in a higher power. You could actually send someone backwards in the wrong direction. So I'm also very careful and cautious not to over preach the aspect of spiritual growth. And we can start at a very rudimentary basis of setting healthy goals, being active, being very conscious of what we eat and what we drink, and becoming a little bit more lifestyle driven, moving away from the technology, spending a little bit more time outside. If, whether you have kids or don't have kids, whether you're connected with family
or maybe you're in a position to, rebind your ancestral connection. All healing is very spiritual. So it's really just building the environment that if we're working in an individual or a group environment to understand what people are going through and provide the resources and the support for them to move forward.
It's a comprehensive answer. No, I appreciate it. That's lofty goals, but it makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, I had an interview with another person. It's an expert in space that I won't name drop them, but the interview may or may not be up by the time this one is. And that's a common theme that we're seeing. Every single person that I've talked to in the space, there's a commonality between it, and it is everything starts inside. I don't know. I'm friendly with a lot of friends that are medical professionals that try to view things from a holistic standpoint, even in a very real, tangible sense. I suppose what you're saying with regards to spiritual growth, let's put the science head on me. I'd say you're at peace with the world, and that peace generally will mean that you're less stressed. Less stress means less cortisol. Less cortisol means less inflammation. So, whatever you want to call it, if you can, work on yourself, as you're saying, internally, as well as working on the external, stress levels will be lower. You'll have less illness. You'll have less sickness in general, and you're winning all around. You're giving first and taking from there. So, I think I love what you're doing here, Mark. In terms of you're hitting from the eastern side of things or the western side of things, as to go full circle from the start of our interview.
Well, that's it's getting very philosophical there, Thomas. That's,
yeah.
There you go. One of the things one of the things I do practice, for anyone that's taking that first step, and to be able to step back from yourself, observe your past and your present, and learning to connect with that higher power in yourself. If you were to speak to yourself, the version of yourself, the higher power, whether it's an older version or a wiser version, or just the best version that you can envision through yourself, looking back at your life, how would you judge yourself? Are you being hypercritical, hypervigilant of the mistakes and the challenges and the errors that have made you who you are today, who have shaped who you are? Practicing 30 days of gratitude was a huge step. Just being very aware of what I'm grateful for, down to a granular level. Thank you for my coffee this morning. Thank you for the ability to wake up and experience a new day. Starting with very, very basic foundation skill sets here.
Yes.
Our social enterprise, our wellness program, is essentially us giving back to the community.
Yeah.
It generates a higher frequency. It moves you away from ego. Also very careful not to trauma bond and not to be stuck in a space with people who are dwelling in a lower vibration, lower frequency space. But there is an aspect that you can lift yourself out of your own funk, so to speak, by giving back. And it just further amplifies gratitude. I am a big believer, again, in holding that state of balance. If you can hold harmony with yourself, practice more daily meditation, more consciousness awakening is the result from those efforts. And moving away from the idea of apathy that, meditating and whether it's a 10-minute practice or a 45-minute practice, that it doesn't mean that you're stopping from, doing anything productive. I mean, it is productive to hold that peace and present space in meditation.
Yeah. And again, going for the Western side, because I have one last question I wanted to bring up, because I think I know the answer to it and I'm excited to hear it. But before I get into that, just put on that sort of Western side of things, the masculine, businessy, sort of high performing attitudes. One major point that I think, if you go full circle with this, is that fundamentally, peace in its own way can be selfish, in the sense that someone could be at peace for selfish reasons. There's that famous book, I believe it's 10% Happier. I think it's Sam Harris, I forget. And he was a famous news reporter, and he basically had a panic attack live on TV. And he was mortified, and he felt like he couldn't get into the job, and all that sort of thing, you're fundamentally not going to be able to perform as high, you know, if you're in a constant state of anxiety, if you're in that fight or flight. So the fact that you're probably going to be more empathetic side, even if you were to try and be selfish, it's silly not to, you know, just optimize everything mentally. It just happens to be the case that usually people will want to give back to people more when they realize that's more fulfilling.
You know, I resisted this as long as I could until it was undeniable. Nikola Tesla famously quoted, "If you want to understand the universe, you need to understand everything. You are inverse. We all come down to a matter of energy, vibration, and frequency. If you understand that, you'll essentially attract more of what you're attracting. If we're stuck in a lower state of vibration and frequency, you will continue to attract lower states of vibration and frequency. And it's a very hard thing for you know, as a male, to understand that there are bigger forces at play here. We've got the divine masculine, we've got the divine feminine that we can also talk about. I'm sure that we're going to come back to another podcast here, Tomas, where we can really explore these topics. But practicing gratitude, practicing space to meditate and to tune into that higher state of frequency, you essentially move away from asking for things and you ask for understanding in the messages and the gifts that you receive. Again, I'm an example of presence in practice. Certainly haven't mastered it yet for myself, but the more that we do it, we start manifesting higher states of vibration and frequency, as opposed to using meditation as a space to problem solve. And I have thankfully moved out of that space through the pandemic. In fact, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably would have been racing it at another billion miles an hour in the wrong direction. So I'm actually quite grateful for the last couple of years to be able to slow things down, really be not just critical of myself, but understand a little bit more than I did, and how that guides me moving forward.
So again, it's you know, it's not what happens to us. It's our last layer of freedom being our ability to choose to the stress is given to us. You know, Viktor Frankl, man's search for meaning, you know, man's last level of freedom is his ability to choose his response to any given situation. And, you know, much like yourself, COVID for me was the best thing to ever happen to me. It actually gave me so much focus and an opportunity for introspection. On that topic though, just last thing we'll bring up is your technology company.
Mm-hmm.
The software tool, the SaaS, the CRM that you're building, it has a name and there's a story behind that name. So if you'd be comfortable doing so, I'd love to hear why you chose the name for your software tool that you have, because we haven't actually mentioned that yet.
Yes. And again, it comes back to this idea that, you know, if you look at the lay of the land, it would be silly for you to invent a new social media platform called Face Bible or People Book, right? I mean, you're really infringing on proprietary branding, trademarks, platforms. You're essentially a Me Too platform. We knew we were very committed to a vision in terms of a brand that people would connect with. Also not being too clever, and especially from a male perspective, not to be too masculine in an industry that's governed by strong women, women that have led the health and wellness industry for decades, and certainly haven't been rewarded for that. You know, softening us guys up, being in tune with, again, those high states of frequency was the reason that we called the platform Chiron. Now, Chiron being a, closely tied to Greek mythology, was a centaur. And if you look at at least the Chiron brand and the logo that we will be sharing very quickly as we roll out our branding packages through the next couple of months, it's almost the perfect ideology of the divine masculine and feminine, the long hair, the arrow. We've obviously got some astronomical calendar references in there as well. But Chiron was the wounded warrior. And coming back to the idea that so many practitioners, so many clinic owners themselves are the wounded warrior.
The wounded healer, is it?
The wounded healer, the wounded warrior, correct. And as the wounded healer, there were just so many of us that we get ready in the morning, we sit in traffic, we go to the job that we despise. Now, in this case, for health and wellness, we have the health of our patients in our hands. If we're not healthy ourselves, how can we expect our patients to thrive and move forward? It moves close to an impossibility. So being very aware of Chiron's energy, also being very multiple modality focused, musician, theologist, a healer, a deity, a warrior. You've got so many contrasts that work in so many different buckets. But Chiron embodied all of that. The irony, of course, is being shot with the arrow and moving back into mortality. I take that as a reintegration, almost the death of itself.
Which is what happened with the mythology. For a bit of context, Chiron was a centaur who basically trained up Hercules and got shot by an arrow by Hercules and hit with a poison arrow. Just for anyone listening, that's the context of the metaphor. Yeah,
exactly. To the point that Chiron actually asked to experience a mortal experience. For some reason, it feels that we don't know what we want. We don't always know what we want. I ask my kids all the time, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? One of them says she wants to fly. The other one wants to live forever. Well, living forever comes with consequences and challenges. You lose that human experience. So for Chiron to ask for a mortal experience, it anchors us in with the love and the pain, the good and the evil, and for us to find that balance. Chiron to me is essentially opening up that theology, philosophy, and embodying that divine masculine and feminine energy, so we can essentially move towards harmony and balance.
We'll finish that because it's a great way to finish it up. Is there a particular place that people can, first of all, thanks so much for having the conversation. I'm looking forward to going back and watching it or listening to it. Where can people find you and find out more about what you're doing with Chiron and your new technology company, Helix?
Yeah, we do have a landing page that should be published. In fact, it is published now. So if you visit chironpractice.ca, the landing CA. So CHIRON, Chiron. Yes, that's correct. As we build out the CRM and the ERP through 2024, that page will be a little bit more sophisticated. And we're activating all of our social channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're going to have a heavy presence on YouTube as well. The most important thing is we've got some great content. We've got some great content partners, great people that obviously share the vision for us to connect the industry and to be that bridge between holistic wellness services and the mental health and the spiritual services that embody the entire ecosystem. I'm just super grateful to be in this, to have this opportunity.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you do great things and look forward to hearing more about it. So all the best and chat soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Thomas. Thank you, man.